When I first started making this video, its working title was "You Should Not Buy a Mac Pro 2019." And while I do think this is still true for Mac users, there's a certain class of users where the Mac Pro 2019 makes a hell of a lot more sense because we are in the stupid timeline. As everyone knows, technology keeps going up in price thanks to AI. Even despite that intro, I ended up shelving this video. That is, until I started to agree with myself again. Most of this video was shot in February, except for the parts where I've obviously edited new content in. So in this video, I'm going to try and talk you out of what I consider making a great mistake, which is buying a Mac Pro 2019. I like to advocate buying used computers on my channel over new ones to save money, but I just can't in good conscience let people buy the Mac Pro 2019 without knowing all the downsides. Let's start with the most obvious reason why not to buy this computer, and that is the lack of support. macOS 26 Tahoe is the last version that will ever be supported for this computer. Yes, there will be a year or two of security updates, and that usually means a year or two of updates for Apple's in-house software, like the new Apple Creative Studio Suite or whatever it's called. That includes like Final Cut, Compressor, Logic Pro. Those applications will probably receive 1 year of updates for the previous OS. After that, any new features, no longer on the Intel. So out of the gate, no more support for Apple's in-house software probably after a year or two. But that doesn't mean all software will be stopped. It remains to be seen how long it'll take companies like Adobe to drop support. Again, you will be locked to the last version they ever released for this computer. Next up is Windows 11. This computer does not have TPM 2.0 because it's too old. Therefore, Windows 11 is not officially supported. You can get Windows 11 on the computer. I have Windows 11 running on mine, but it is a time bomb. Eventually, Microsoft may make it so you cannot run unofficial Windows 11 on unsupported computers. At this point, I'm sure someone's already headed to the comments to bring up Linux, which is a completely valid point. Yes, many distros will be supported for many years. But let me posit something else. This might not be the computer for you for Linux. Hear me out on this. The Mac Pro 2019 was an excellent computer when it came out 7 years ago. Quite a few things have changed in that time, and there are better values depending on your use case. This computer is not known for being very power efficient with its Xeon CPUs. On screen are the thermal numbers from Apple.com, and these range quite a bit based on the loadout, anywhere from 100 watts idling to 300 watts idling. That is doing absolutely nothing, and it's still burning that much power. The Mac Pro 2019 also uses DDR4, but depending on your view, that might be a positive considering the prices of DDR5. This is going to be a bit of a side rant because most people think they need more RAM than they actually do. AI bros can sit this out because I'm talking to normal professionals. I consider myself a hefty power user, as by trade I'm a lead full-stack web developer and app developer, and my digital hobbies include a lot of things like digital music, where I use a ton of different software including NI Complete, Cubase, Logic Pro, Ableton, and hardware to accompany it. I'm also a hobbyist YouTuber. As you can see by this video, I shoot in ProRes RAW 4K and edit it and such, and I do motion graphics occasionally for these videos. After that, I'm also a hobbyist photographer, sometimes digital illustrator. You get the idea. I do a lot. Oh, and I forgot to mention my dev flow. I use things like virtualization and Docker. And I'm not saying this all to brag, just to give weight to what I'm about to say next. I can do pretty much everything I just mentioned very comfortably on my M1 Max that has less than half the RAM, and I can do that without taxing the memory pressure that hard. There are, of course, exceptions to this rule, like medical researchers or people in bioinformatics, quants doing financial modeling, people probably engineering fluid dynamics, anything that's just absurd. Yes, those people will probably need way more RAM than most people would ever. But those people are probably not very price sensitive. And that's because likely their company's not very price sensitive, so they're not looking at these computers. What is worth buying is Ugreen chargers. Yep, it's a sponsor segment. I do not do sponsorships unless I'd actually buy the thing with my own money, and since I'm picking, this is maybe the third one I've done now. Ugreen sent over 2 new products. The first of the 2 products is the Ugreen Nexode Airs. These are absolutely tiny 65-watt chargers. They can charge a MacBook Air from 0 to 55% in a half hour and an iPhone 17 Pro Max to 68% power in 30 minutes. Also, they come in 4 different colors: Starlight Blue, Space Gray, Cosmic Orange, and Lunar White. They are, of course, compatible with pretty much any device that uses USB-C power. On a personal note, this has become the default charger that I carry, as it's beefy enough to power a MacBook M4 Pro 16-inch computer. It also supports 100 through 240 volts, so if you're traveling, all you need is an adapter. The second is the Ugreen MagFlow Air Power Bank. It's a MagSafe compatible battery, and it's a beast. I use this while making this video because I shoot all my footage on an iPhone. This magnetic power bank comes with a 10,000 mAh capacity and can charge an iPhone completely around 2 times. These will be both on sale for 38% off during Amazon Prime days, or check the links to get 25% off. Next up, this computer is only PCI 3.0, which isn't the biggest of deals, but you're leaving quite a bit of SSD performance on the table. And at the top end of GPUs, if you're taking as much money as it takes to buy a 5090 Ti today, you want to capture every bit of performance you can out of this. So you're better off buying just about any PCI 4.0 or 5.0 platform with any CPU, and you'll capture more of that performance. Since this is a modular computer with PCIe slots, you can add in multiple internal SSDs. I was able to add 4 SSDs and link them together in a RAID 0 array, and I was able to get 11 gigabytes a second. The problem is that took 4 SSDs to achieve that speed, and it was in a RAID 0 array. If one of those drives were to die, I'd get 0 of my files back. And then on top of that, you can't boot off RAID 0 arrays in macOS. This brings me to my next topic, which is CPU architecture. These use the Cascade Lake era Xeon W series 14 nanometer underperformers. There's just no other way to describe them, because even a year later, Apple released Apple Silicon CPUs that would just absolutely mop the floor with anything that Intel was doing. If you go to the AMD side of things, even a year or 2 later, you can find CPUs that will just outperform the 28-core CPU found in this computer in their prosumer lineup. So if you're after just raw performance, you can do a lot better for a lot less money. Sure, it won't have quite the expandability, but it'll be less power draw and a lot faster. There seems to be a surprising amount of people who want to buy this computer so they can play games. And yeah, it can natively boot Windows, but it is a 7-year-old computer, and macOS can't support more modern GPUs. So it kind of negates it as a catch-all solution, and you're stuck at macOS 26. Probably better off just buying a Mac Mini and having some sort of gaming PC platform. You're not saving really money or space or anything by getting this computer. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that the Mac Pro 2019 has SATA storage, and yes, this is true, but like most things Apple, there's asterisks. So what those are is that there aren't any internal mounting ports for internal drives in the Mac Pro 2019. So you have to bring your own. There are 3D printed projects and people have made their own that you can buy. The second and more important one is that the internal 2 SATA ports and the USB require a specialized cable harness. It doesn't use default SATA, so you'll have to either bridge your own or find one online. I know the SATA cable is not a make or break situation for the Mac Pro 2019, but it is weird, and there's not very many vendors online selling these things. Right now, I did see that moddiy.com sells them for about $20 USD, and they ship worldwide. Never used them. Who knows how good that cable is, but they exist, but not very many places. My conclusion for this video is not as strong now that I've had to hedge it a little, but I still completely agree with my past self. Most users should not be buying this computer long as they're trying to run Mac OS as their primary OS, and even Windows 10. While I was recording this, Snazzy Labs dropped a great video that I think everyone should watch that explains why suddenly Apple's products are a great value. And spoilers, it's because of price hikes and supply chaining, or rather, Apple's favorable supply chaining. You also don't have to buy a brand new Apple Silicon Mac. They've been out for almost 6 years now, so we're starting to see a pretty robust used market. It's not the best deals, but it's a hell of a lot less than buying a brand new computer, and it'll probably hold you off until things normalize. I'm warning you, this is going to be a side tangent rant for just a second, but bear with me. I'm worried that we're headed into a future where everything's subscription or rent to own, and these price hikes are going to be permanent or for the very long term. So anything you can do to continue owning your own digital self is going to be increasingly important. Be it buying used computers, fixing the computers you have, or at least investing in ones that you buy and you actually own the hardware. At risk of undercutting myself yet again, in that nightmare technocratic hellscape future, if it takes a Mac Pro 2019 to keep you from having to buy into a subscription world, then do it. So far, Apple Silicon Linux has not been going great. At initial success as the first 2 generations of Apple Silicon are supported, mostly, but the recent versions are not. So if you're looking for a Linux future where you actually own everything, the Mac Pro 2019 does offer a compelling option. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You don't need a Mac Pro 2019 to install Linux. You can do it on almost any computer. If you're really looking to own your own digital life, I'd really recommend buying some sort of NAS running a Linux variant. The future of the Mac Pro 2019 is legacy macOS support and Linux. But if you're serious about either of these two things, you should be looking at a Mac Studio M2 because it can boot Linux natively, it can run legacy versions of macOS that support Rosetta 2, and on top of that, it has current macOS support and will continue to do so for at least a couple more years. The Mac Pro 2019 is a hobbyist computer for people with disposable incomes. It's not a serious computer for serious people anymore. The Mac Studio is faster for almost all tasks, it's smaller, it's quieter, and it uses a lot less power. So if you're buying a computer to get things done, get the Mac Studio M2. If you want a pure Linux box, I would first look at the other options out there, then come back to the Mac Pro 2019. After that, if you're just one of those people that has money to burn and always wanted one of these computers, it's not going to affect your life in any negative way, then go ahead and get it. Alright, I've been on the internet long enough to know that if I don't mention the following, I'm going to feel the wrath of the Linux community. Yes, the Mac Pro 2019 can boot many more versions of Linux because it's x86. Apple Silicon right now with the M1 and M2 gets one version or distro of Linux. But Apple Silicon Macs can virtualize quite a few different versions of Linux or distros. And then on top of that, if you can boot into Asahi Linux on an M1 or M2, you do get Proton and Steam. So there's that too. So hopefully I talked you out of buying a Mac Pro 2019. But if I didn't, fuck it, I did my best. I'd like to thank my Patreons. You guys are the greatest because you keep me from putting mid-rolls in these videos. Thanks.